The billionaire's newborn wouldn't stop crying on the bed. Doctors found nothing. 3 nannies walked out in fear. But when a young black maid leaned closer to the crib, she uncovered a secret that no one could have imagined. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, what time is it and where are you watching from? Midnight. Boston, Massachusetts. The screaming ripped through the penthouse again. Zola stood outside the nursery door, her hand trembling on the polished oak. She was 24 years old. She'd only been working here for 4 months. But tonight felt different. The baby's cries weren't normal. They were desperate, urgent, like he was trying to tell someone something. Zola! Lillian Carrington's voice cut through the hallway. Sharp, trembling, afraid. Zola pushed the door open. The nursery was massive. Gold leaf covered the walls. Velvet drapes hung from ceiling to floor. A crystal chandelier sparkled overhead. Everything screamed wealth. Everything except the crib in the center of the room. The baby boy thrashed inside it. His tiny fists pounded the satin sheets. His curly hair stuck to his forehead from sweat. His face was red, his mouth wide open, screaming. Zola stepped closer, her black uniform spotless, white apron tied perfectly at her waist despite the late hour. Her heart pounded in her chest. Something was wrong. She felt it deep in her gut. She'd cared for babies before, back in her neighborhood, back before she took this job to help her sick mother pay medical bills. She knew what normal crying sounded like. This wasn't it. This was terror. She bent over the crib, scanning everything. The mobile hung perfectly still. The plush rug beneath her feet felt slightly damp. The sheets were expensive, smooth, untouched, except where the baby kicked. But the mattress, something about the mattress bothered her. She placed her hand on it gently, testing the firmness. It sagged, just slightly, almost impossible to notice unless you were looking for it. Her breath caught. "What are you doing?" Lillian appeared in the doorway, silk nightgown clinging to her thin frame. Her eyes were wide, scared. "Why won't he stop?" Behind her stood Dexter Carrington, tall, broad shoulders, expensive watch glinting on his wrist. He adjusted his cufflinks nervously, a habit Zola had noticed whenever he felt uncomfortable. "I don't know yet," Zola said quietly, still focused on the crib. "But something's not right." "The doctor said he's fine," Dexter snapped. 3 different pediatricians, top specialists in Boston. They found nothing. "Then why did 3 nannies quit?" Zola asked, her voice steady. Lillian flinched. They couldn't handle the crying. They were weak. Were they? Zola looked up at her. Or did they see something you didn't want to believe? The tension in the room thickened. Dexter stepped forward. "Watch your tone. You're the help." "I'm the only one left," Zola said calmly. "And if you want your son to stop crying, you need to listen to me." She lifted the corner of the mattress carefully. Her hands moved slowly, deliberately. She peeled back the luxurious fabric that cost more than her entire year's salary. And then she saw it. The frame beneath the mattress was rotting. The wood was weak, unstable, crumbling in places. The expensive crib, the centerpiece of this golden nursery, was a death trap. "Oh my God," Lillian whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. Zola's mind raced. The baby wasn't just crying. He was uncomfortable, maybe even in pain. The unstable mattress probably shifted every time he moved, creating pressure points. No wonder he screamed. But that wasn't the worst part. As she examined the frame closer, she saw them. Red marks, small scratches along the wood. Fresh ones, recent ones. Her stomach turned. "How long has this crib been like this?" she asked, her voice tight. "It's brand new," Dexter said defensively. "We bought it 6 months ago, before he was born, top of the line. Imported from Italy?" 6 months, Zola repeated. "And no one checked it? No one maintained it?" Silence. The baby's cries grew louder, as if feeding off the tension in the room. Zola carefully lifted him from the crib. He was so small, so fragile. His little body shook with each sob. She held him close, whispering soft words, rocking him gently. Slowly, his cries began to soften. "What are you doing?" Lillian asked, stepping closer. "What you should have done weeks ago," Zola said. "I'm protecting him." She carried the baby to the rocking chair in the corner, away from the dangerous crib. She sat down, still cradling him, still whispering. "The other nannies," Zola said quietly, looking up at the Carringtons. "They saw this, didn't they? They saw something was wrong. And instead of fixing it, you blamed them. You called them weak. You sent them away." Lillian's face went pale. "That's not..." "Yes, it is." Zola's voice was firm now. "You ignored the signs. You chose to believe your money could fix everything. That your expensive crib and your designer nursery and your top specialists would be enough. But you forgot the most important thing." "What?" Dexter asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You forgot to actually pay attention to your son." The words hung in the air, like smoke. The baby's breathing slowed. His tiny fingers wrapped around Zola's thumb. His eyes, puffy and red from crying, finally began to close. Lillian sank against the doorframe. Dexter ran his hand through his hair, his expensive watch catching the light from the chandelier. "What do we do?" Lillian asked, her voice breaking. Zola looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms, then back at the rotting crib, then at the two people who had everything except what their son needed most. "We call someone," she said. "Right now, we document everything. And we make sure this never happens again." "But it's midnight," Dexter protested. "Your son has been crying for weeks," Zola shot back. "Midnight doesn't matter anymore." She stood up carefully, still holding the baby. "I'm not just the maid, not anymore. I'm the only thing standing between your son and real danger. So, either you listen to me, or I walk out that door just like the others did." Lillian and Dexter stared at her. The young black woman in the simple uniform, holding their son, speaking truth they'd been avoiding for months. "What happened to the other nannies?" Zola asked again, softer this time. What did they really see? And in that question, everything changed. Because Zola knew. Deep down, she knew. This wasn't just about a broken crib. This was about something much, much worse. If you've made it this far, you're already hooked. You want to know what Zola discovered, what the other nannies really saw, what secret the Carringtons have been hiding. But here's the reality. Only 1% of people watching this story right now are actually subscribed. If you're in that other 99%, I need 2 seconds of your time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. Because what happens next in this story will shake you. The corruption runs deeper than anyone imagined. The stakes get higher, and Zola's fight is just beginning. By subscribing, you're not just following this story. You're joining a community that values truth over comfort, courage over silence, and real stories that matter. Your subscription is what allows me to keep bringing you these powerful narratives that expose injustice and celebrate the everyday heroes who fight back. 2 seconds. Subscribe. Bell on. Let's finish this together. Now, let me tell you what Zola found out about those other nannies. And trust me, you're not ready for this. The first nanny quit after 2 weeks. The second lasted 5 days. The third didn't even make it through her first night. What did they see that made them run? Zola was about to find out. I need their phone numbers, she said, still holding the sleeping baby. All 3 of them. Lillian's face went tight. Absolutely not. That's private information. Your son's safety isn't private. Zola fired back. Those women saw something. Something that scared them enough to walk away from jobs that pay 6 figures. I need to know what it was. Dexter crossed his arms. They were incompetent. End of story. Then you won't mind if I call them, Zola said. If they were just weak like you claim, they'll say so. But if they saw what I'm seeing now... What are you seeing? Lillian interrupted, her voice rising. A broken crib. We'll replace it tomorrow. Problem solved. Zola shook her head slowly. This crib didn't break overnight. The wood is rotted. That takes time, moisture, neglect. Which means it's been dangerous for weeks, maybe months. She looked at them both hard. Your son has been sleeping in a death trap, and 3 trained professionals noticed something was wrong. But instead of listening to them, you fired them. The silence in the nursery was deafening. Fine, Dexter finally said. He pulled out his phone. I'll give you one number, Maria Gonzalez, the first nanny. But this is a waste of time. He texted Zola the contact. She shifted the baby carefully to one arm and dialed with her free hand. It rang 4 times before a tired voice answered. Hello? Maria? My name is Zola. I work for the Carringtons now. I'm the... Get out! Maria's voice cut through the line like a knife. Get out of that house right now. Zola's blood ran cold. What did you see? I can't talk about this. I signed an NDA. An NDA? Zola glanced at Lillian, whose face had gone white. They made you sign a non-disclosure agreement? Please, Maria whispered. Just leave, before it's too late. Maria, the baby is in danger. The crib is... It's not just the crib. Maria's voice cracked. That's what I tried to tell them. But they wouldn't listen. They said I was being dramatic. They said I was trying to extort them. Zola's heart pounded. What else did you find? Heavy breathing on the other end. Then, the marks. What marks? On the baby. Small ones. Red lines on his back, like something was pressing into him while he slept. I documented everything. I took pictures. I showed Mrs. Carrington. Zola looked at Lillian. Is this true? Lillian's hands trembled. She was mistaken. The pediatrician said it was just normal infant skin irritation. Which pediatrician? Zola demanded. Dr. Reynolds, our family doctor. Your family doctor, Zola repeated. The one you pay. The one who depends on your money to keep his practice running in Palo Alto. Dexter stepped forward. How dare you? Did you get a second opinion? Zola cut him off. From a doctor who didn't owe you anything? No answer. Maria's voice came through the phone again. I begged them to take him to Children's Hospital, to let real specialists examine him. But they refused. They said I was causing unnecessary drama. They paid me 3 months' salary to leave quietly and never speak about what I saw. Zola felt sick. The other nannies, did they see the marks too? Ask them yourself, Maria said, if they'll talk to you. Most of us are too scared. Scared of what? The Carringtons are powerful people. They have lawyers, connections. One phone call and your whole life can fall apart. I have a family to protect. I couldn't risk it. The line went dead. Zola lowered the phone slowly. She looked at the baby in her arms. So small, so innocent. She pulled his onesie up carefully, examining his back. There, faint red lines, barely visible. But there. Oh, God, she whispered. Lillian lunged forward. Stop it. You're invading his privacy. He's a baby, Zola shouted. He doesn't have privacy. He has parents who are supposed to protect him, and you're failing. The baby stirred, but didn't wake. Zola pulled his onesie back down gently, her hands shaking with anger. How long? She asked quietly. How long have you known something was wrong? Lillian's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. We have a reputation. Dexter's company just went public. We're in the middle of a merger. If word got out that we were neglecting our child. You are neglecting your child. Zola's voice echoed off the gold leaf walls. You chose your image over his safety. You paid people to stay quiet instead of fixing the problem. Dexter's jaw clenched. We did what we had to do. No, Zola said. You did what was easiest, what protected you. Not him. She walked past them, still holding the baby, heading toward the door. Where are you going? Lillian asked, panic rising in her voice. To take proper pictures of these marks, to document the crib, to call a pediatrician who doesn't owe you anything. And if you try to stop me, I walk out right now and I call Child Protective Services on my way out the door. Dexter moved to block her path. You can't do that. Zola met his eyes. Watch me. For a long moment, they stood there. The billionaire and the maid, one holding all the money and power, the other holding something far more important. Finally, Dexter stepped aside. Zola walked past him into the hallway. She could hear Lillian crying behind her. Could hear Dexter making phone calls, probably to his lawyers. She didn't care. She carried the baby downstairs to the kitchen, the brightest room in the penthouse. She laid him gently on the clean counter, supporting his head carefully. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. The marks on his back, the red scratches, the faint bruising near his shoulder blades. Evidence. Then she went back upstairs, past the Carringtons, who were now arguing in hushed, angry whispers, back to the nursery. She photographed the rotting crib frame, the unstable mattress, the red marks on the wood that matched the marks on the baby's skin. More evidence. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Sarah Chen. Second nanny. Maria gave me your number. Call me. Now. Zola's hands shook as she dialed. Sarah answered immediately. How bad is it? Bad, Zola said. The crib is completely unstable. The baby has marks on his back. They paid Maria to stay quiet. They paid all of us, Sarah said. But I kept my copies, pictures, medical notes, everything. I knew someday someone would need them. Why didn't you report it? I tried. Sarah's voice broke. I called the non-emergency line for child services. But the Carringtons found out. Their lawyer threatened to sue me for defamation. Said they'd destroy my career, make sure I never worked with children again. Zola closed her eyes. I need those documents. I'll email them to you right now. But Zola, be careful. These people don't play fair. They'll come after you with everything they have. Let them, Zola said. I'm not backing down. She hung up and looked at the crib one last time, at the danger that had been hiding in plain sight, at the evidence that 3 other women had tried to expose. The Carringtons thought their money made them untouchable. They were about to learn they were wrong. At 1:47 a.m., Zola's phone pinged. Sarah Chen's email had arrived. What she saw in those attachments made her realize this wasn't just neglect anymore. This was a crime. She opened the first file. A photo of the baby at 3 weeks old. Red marks crisscrossing his tiny back like a roadmap of pain. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 months ago. 2 months. Her hands shook as she swiped to the next image. Another photo. Same marks, different angle. Dated 5 days later. The marks were deeper this time. Angrier. Jesus, she whispered. The baby slept peacefully in her arms now. Finally comfortable on the soft couch in the living room, far away from that death trap upstairs. She looked down at his innocent face and felt rage building in her chest. The next file was a voice memo. She pressed play, keeping the volume low. Sarah's voice came through, shaky and scared. "This is day 12. The marks are getting worse. I showed Mrs. Carrington again today. She told me to stop being hysterical. Said the baby's skin is just sensitive. But I know what I'm seeing. Something in that crib is hurting him." Zola's throat tightened. Another voice memo. Day 15. I measured the crib frame today while they were out. The mattress support is sagging 2 inches on the left side. There's a metal bracket that's come loose. It's pressing through the mattress when the baby lies down. That's what's causing the marks. I told Mr. Carrington. He said I was overreacting. He gave me an envelope with $5,000 cash and told me to take a week off to calm down. Zola felt sick. The final voice memo was dated the day Sarah quit. I can't do this anymore. I reported it to the pediatrician they sent me to, Dr. Reynolds. He barely looked at the baby. Just said it was normal. I know he's lying. I know they paid him. I'm leaving today. I'm taking copies of everything. If something happens to this baby, I need proof that I tried. The recording ended. Zola sat in silence, her heart pounding. She looked through the rest of the files. Medical notes, photographs, even a short video of Sarah pointing out the sagging mattress, the loose bracket, the dangers everyone was ignoring. Proof. Footsteps on the marble stairs made her look up. Lillian appeared, now dressed in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater. Her eyes were red from crying. We need to talk, Lillian said quietly. Yes, we do, Zola replied, not moving from the couch. Lillian sat in the chair across from her, perched on the edge like she might bolt at any second. I know what you're thinking. Do you? You think we're terrible parents. You think we put our image before our son. You think... I don't think anything, Zola interrupted. I know. I have proof now. Photos, voice recordings, medical documentation, from multiple nannies, all saying the same thing. Lillian's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be like this. What wasn't? Any of it. Lillian's voice broke. Having a baby, being a mother. I thought it would be easy. We have money, resources, the best of everything. But he just kept crying and crying. And I didn't know what to do. So you ignored the people who did know, Zola said flatly. I was scared, Lillian shouted, then caught herself, glancing at the sleeping baby. She lowered her voice. I was terrified. What if it was my fault? What if I was doing something wrong? What if people found out I couldn't handle my own child? Zola stared at her. So you let him suffer? I didn't mean to, Lillian whispered. I thought if I just pushed through it, if I stayed strong, everything would get better. Dexter kept saying the nannies were weak, that they were trying to manipulate us. I wanted to believe him. Why? Because believing him was easier than admitting the truth. Tears streamed down Lillian's face. I grew up poor, Zola. Did you know that? I clawed my way out of a trailer park in Mississippi. I married Dexter. I built this life, this perfect life, and I was terrified of losing it. So you built it on your son's pain. Lillian flinched like she'd been slapped. Zola leaned forward. Where's Dexter right now? On the phone with our lawyers. To sue me? To protect us. Lillian wiped her eyes. He's scared too. His company's merger is worth $300 million. If this gets out, maybe you'll finally do the right thing, Zola said. Maybe you'll put your son first for once. We do put him first. You put yourselves first, Zola corrected. You always have. That's why 3 nannies quit. That's why your son screamed for weeks. That's why he has scars on his back that might never fully heal. Scars? Lillian's voice went hollow. They'll scar? I don't know, but they might. Physical scars from the bracket. Emotional scars from months of pain that no one took seriously. Lillian buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Zola felt no sympathy. Not yet. Maybe later. But right now, she needed answers. I'm calling a real pediatrician in the morning, she said. Not Dr. Reynolds. Someone independent. Someone who can examine your son properly and document everything. Dexter won't allow it. Dexter doesn't get a vote anymore. Zola's voice was steel. I have enough evidence to bury both of you. The only question is whether you want to fix this quietly or if you want me to make it public. Lillian's head snapped up. You wouldn't. Try me. They locked eyes. The society wife and the maid who held all the cards now. What do you want? Lillian finally asked. I want you to be a mother, Zola said. A real one. Not the Instagram version you show your friends, not the society page version you perform at galas. I want you to actually care about your son more than you care about what people think. I do care. Prove it, Zola challenged. Let me call the pediatrician. Let me get your son real help and stop fighting me every step of the way. Lillian was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. And one more thing, Zola added. You're going to compensate the nannies you silenced. Sarah, Maria, the third one too. Full back pay, apologies, everything. Dexter will never... I don't care what Dexter wants, Zola said. Those women risked everything to protect your child. You destroyed their careers to protect your reputation. You're going to make it right. Before Lillian could respond, Dexter's voice boomed from the doorway. Like hell we will. He stood there, phone in hand, his face twisted with anger. I just got off with our attorney. You're fired, Zola. Pack your things and get out. Zola stood slowly, still holding the baby. No. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not going anywhere. And if you try to force me out, I'm walking straight to the police station with every piece of evidence I have. Photos, voice recordings, medical documentation, all of it. Dexter's jaw clenched. You signed an NDA. I signed an employment agreement, Zola corrected. Not a gag order. And NDAs don't cover child endangerment. Ask your lawyer. The color drained from Dexter's face. Here's what's going to happen, Zola continued, her voice calm and controlled. Tomorrow morning, a real pediatrician is going to examine your son. We're going to document his injuries properly. We're going to replace that crib with something safe. And you're going to start being actual parents. And if we refuse? Dexter asked. Then I make one phone call to Child Protective Services and another to every news outlet in Boston. Let's see how your $300 million merger holds up when the headline reads, Tech billionaire silences nannies while baby suffers. The room went silent except for the baby's soft breathing. Dexter looked at Lillian. Lillian looked at the floor. "Fine," Dexter finally said, his voice hollow. "We'll do it your way." "Good," Zola said. "Now get out, both of you. I need to settle him for the night." They left without another word. Zola looked down at the baby in her arms. He was still sleeping, finally peaceful, finally safe. "I've got you," she whispered. "No one's going to hurt you anymore." But even as she said it, she knew the hardest part was still coming. Because the Carringtons weren't the type to give up power easily. And the war had just begun. At 9 a.m. sharp, Dr. Patricia Morrison walked through the penthouse door. She was nothing like Dr. Reynolds. No fancy suit, no polished smile. Just a woman in scrubs with 20 years of pediatric emergency experience who didn't care about anyone's reputation. Zola had called her at 7 that morning. Found her through a referral from a nurse she knew in Manhattan. Someone who couldn't be bought. "Show me the baby," Dr. Morrison said without greeting. Zola led her to the living room where the baby lay on a clean blanket, awake now, cooing softly. Lillian and Dexter sat stiffly on the opposite couch, watching like defendants at trial. Morrison knelt beside the baby. Her hands were gentle but efficient as she began the examination. She checked his temperature, his reflexes, his breathing. Then she lifted his onesie. Her face went hard. "How long has he had these marks?" she asked, not looking up. "We don't know exactly," Zola said. "At least 2 months based on the previous nanny's documentation." 2 months? Dr. Morrison's voice was sharp. She looked at the Carringtons. "You let your infant suffer with visible injuries for 2 months." "Our family doctor said it was normal skin irritation," Dexter said defensively. "Your family doctor was wrong, or lying." Dr. Morrison pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. "These are pressure marks, consistent with prolonged contact with a hard object. See here?" She pointed to a faint red line. "This follows the exact pattern of a metal edge, and here, this bruising suggests the injury was repetitive, night after night." Lillian made a choking sound. Dr. Morrison continued her examination in silence. She measured the marks, documented their location, checked for any signs of infection or deeper tissue damage. Finally, she stood. "I need to see the crib." Zola led her upstairs. Dr. Morrison's face darkened with each step. The nursery looked different in daylight. The gold leaf seemed gaudy now, the velvet drapes excessive, the crystal chandelier absurd. All that money and luxury surrounding a death trap. Dr. Morrison examined the crib frame carefully. She ran her fingers along the rotted wood, tested the sagging mattress, found the loose metal bracket that had been pressing into the baby's back for months. "This is criminal negligence," she said quietly. "Can you prove it?" Zola asked. "I can document it. The rest is up to child services." Dr. Morrison pulled out a measuring tape and started recording dimensions. The sag in the mattress, the gap where the bracket had come loose, the moisture damage in the wood. "How did this happen?" she asked. "I think the nursery has a humidity problem," Zola said. "The rug downstairs was damp. The walls probably absorbed moisture. It rotted the wood from the inside." "And no one noticed?" "People noticed. They just didn't care enough to fix it." Dr. Morrison's jaw tightened. She finished her measurements and headed back downstairs. The Carringtons were exactly where they'd been left. Frozen, waiting for judgment. I'm filing a report with Child Protective Services, Dr. Morrison said, pulling out a tablet. This baby has been subjected to ongoing physical harm due to parental negligence. The injuries are documented. The cause is documented. The timeline is documented. Wait. Dexter stood up. We can fix this. We'll replace the crib today. You'll do nothing. Dr. Morrison cut him off. You've already done enough damage. Please. Lillian's voice was desperate. Don't take our son away. That's not my decision, Dr. Morrison said. That's up to CPS. But I'll tell you this. If I were making the call, I'd remove him from this home immediately. The words hit like a bomb. Lillian burst into tears. Dexter's face went white. Zola stood quietly in the corner, holding her ground. This was necessary. This was justice. However, Dr. Morrison continued, typing on her tablet, there are mitigating factors. The baby appears healthy otherwise, no signs of malnutrition or intentional abuse, and you've now allowed proper medical examination. Those things count for something. What does that mean? Dexter asked. It means CPS will investigate. They'll interview all of you. They'll inspect this home, and they'll decide if your son stays or goes. Dr. Morrison looked at Zola. I'm recommending that the current caregiver, Zola, remain as the primary supervisor until the investigation concludes. She's the only one who's shown consistent concern for this child's welfare. Zola's heart pounded. I'll do it. You can't be serious, Dexter protested. She's just the maid. She's the only reason your son is still safe, Dr. Morrison said coldly, which is more than I can say for his actual parents. The silence that followed was crushing. Dr. Morrison finished her report and stood. Someone from CPS will be here within 48 hours. Until then, that crib gets thrown out. The baby sleeps under constant supervision, and if I hear he's been harmed in any way at all, I will personally make sure you both face criminal charges. She handed Zola a card. Call me if you need anything, day or night. Then she left, taking with her any illusion the Carringtons had of controlling this situation. The moment the door closed, Dexter exploded. Do you have any idea what you've done? CPS? A formal investigation? This will destroy us. Good, Zola said simply. Good? Dexter's voice rose. My company's stock will tank. The merger will fall apart. We'll be ruined. Your son almost died in his sleep, Zola shot back. Every single night for months. And all you can think about is money. That's not fair. Fair? Zola laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? 3 women tried to save your child. You threatened them, paid them off, silenced them. You chose your reputation over your son's life. And now you're shocked there are consequences? Lillian stood up, her face streaked with tears. We didn't know it was this bad. You didn't want to know, Zola corrected. There's a difference. Every time someone showed you proof, you looked away. Every time someone begged you to get a real help, you fired them. You knew. You just didn't care enough to act. That's not true, Lillian sobbed. Then prove me wrong, Zola challenged. When CPS gets here, tell them everything. Every mistake. Every warning you ignored. Every nanny you silenced. Take responsibility for once in your lives. Dexter and Lillian looked at each other. The perfect power couple. The society darlings. The tech billionaire and his beautiful wife. All of it crumbling around them. What happens now? Dexter finally asked, his voice hollow. Now we wait, Zola said. And we take care of your son. Actually take care of him. Not for the cameras, not for your friends, for him. She walked over to the baby and picked him up gently. He looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes. "I'm moving into the guest room," Zola announced. "The one next to the nursery. I'll be with him around the clock until CPS makes their decision." "You can't just—" Dexter started. "I can," Zola interrupted. "And I will. Dr. Morrison put me in charge. You heard her? So unless you want to defy a direct medical order and give CPS even more ammunition, you'll let me do my job." She headed toward the stairs, then paused. "Oh, and Dexter? That crib needs to be gone by tonight. Hire someone to remove it, donate it, burn it. I don't care. But if I see it still sitting in that nursery when I come back down, I'm calling Dr. Morrison and telling her you're refusing to comply." She didn't wait for a response. She climbed the stairs with the baby in her arms, leaving the Carringtons standing in their massive, empty living room. Inside the guest room, Zola sat in the reading chair and looked down at the baby. He was calm now, content, safe. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sarah Chen. "I heard Dr. Morrison filed a report. Thank you. You're doing what we couldn't." Then another text from Maria. "Stay strong. They'll come after you. But you're right. That baby needs you." Zola felt tears prick her eyes. Not from fear, from determination. She had declared war on one of the wealthiest families in Boston. She had risked everything, her job, her safety, maybe even her future. But as she looked at the tiny life in her arms, she knew she'd do it all over again, because some things were worth fighting for. And this baby was one of them. 36 hours until CPS arrived. Dexter Carrington wasn't waiting around to let his empire crumble. At 11 p.m., Zola heard voices coming from his office. She crept down the hallway, baby monitor in hand, and pressed her ear to the door. "I don't care what it costs," Dexter hissed into the phone. "Find something on her. Everyone has secrets. Criminal record, bad credit. I don't care. Just find it." Zola's blood ran cold. He was trying to destroy her. She backed away silently and returned to the guest room. Her hands shook as she checked on the sleeping baby. He was peaceful now, finally getting the rest he deserved. But Zola knew peace wouldn't last. She pulled out her phone and texted Sarah. "He's digging into my background. What do I do?" The response came immediately. "He did the same to me. Found an unpaid parking ticket from 6 years ago and tried to use it to discredit me. Be ready for anything." Zola sat in the darkness, thinking. She had no criminal record. Her credit was decent. She'd lived a quiet life, working hard, sending money home to her sick mother in Atlanta. But Dexter had resources, lawyers, private investigators, money that could twist any truth into a weapon. She couldn't let him win. At midnight, she heard footsteps in the hallway, a soft knock on her door. "Zola?" Lillian's voice, quiet, hesitant. Zola opened the door a crack. Lillian stood there in a silk robe, her face bare of makeup, looking 10 years older than usual. "Can we talk?" Lillian asked. "About what?" "About tomorrow. About what's going to happen." Zola stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind her so they wouldn't wake the baby. "What do you want, Lillian?" "I want to apologize." "Little late for that." "I know." Lillian's voice cracked. "I know it doesn't fix anything. But I need you to understand. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Intent doesn't matter," Zola said. "Results do. Your son suffered. That's the result." Lillian wrapped her arms around herself. "I was so focused on being perfect. the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect hostess. I thought if I just looked like I had it all together, everything would fall into place. Life doesn't work that way. I know that now. Tears streamed down Lillian's face. I grew up with nothing. My father was a drunk. My mother worked 3 jobs. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I promised myself I'd never be poor again, never be powerless again. So you became the thing you hated, Zola said quietly. You became the person who uses power to hurt people. Lillian flinched. I didn't see it that way. You never do. People like you never see what you're doing until someone forces you to look. People like me? Lillian's voice turned sharp. You don't know me. I know enough, Zola said. I know you paid 3 women to stay silent about your son's suffering. I know you chose appearances over his safety. I know you'd rather protect your reputation than admit you made mistakes. That's not... It is, Zola interrupted. And tomorrow, when CPS walks through that door, all of it is going to come out. Every lie, every cover-up, every choice you made that put your son in danger. Lillian's composure shattered. She slid down the wall, sitting on the marble floor, sobbing into her hands. They're going to take him away. I know they are, and I deserve it. Zola watched her, feeling something she didn't expect. Not sympathy exactly, but understanding. Lillian was broken, terrified, human. Maybe you do deserve it, Zola said. But he doesn't deserve to lose his mother, not if you actually change. Lillian looked up, mascara-stained tears on her cheeks. How do I change? How do I fix this? You start by telling the truth, all of it. No lawyers spinning stories, no PR damage control, just the truth. Dexter will never agree to that. Then you do it without him, Zola said. You stand up to your husband for once and you put your son first. Lillian shook her head. You don't understand. Dexter controls everything. The money, the house, my entire life. If I go against him, then you find out who you really are, Zola finished. The question is, are you the woman who stays silent and loses her son? Or are you the woman who fights for him? They sat in silence for a long moment. I don't know if I'm strong enough, Lillian whispered. You won't know until you try. Lillian pulled herself up slowly. She wiped her eyes. What if CPS takes him anyway? Even if I tell the truth? Then at least you'll know you tried, Zola said. At least you'll know you finally did the right thing. Lillian nodded slowly and walked back to the master bedroom without another word. Zola returned to the guest room and checked on the baby. Still sleeping. Still safe. She lay down on the bed, but couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with everything that could go wrong tomorrow. Dexter's investigation, CPS's decision, the possibility that this baby might be taken away despite everything she'd done. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. She opened it carefully. Ms. Washington, my name is Detective James Chen with the Boston Police Department. I'm Sarah Chen's brother. She told me what's happening. I've been investigating the Carringtons for 18 months on an unrelated matter involving financial fraud. If you need help tomorrow, call me. He included his badge number and direct line. Zola stared at the email, her heart pounding. Financial fraud. The Carringtons were under criminal investigation? Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. That's why Dexter was so desperate. It wasn't just about the baby or the merger. He was already on law enforcement's radar. A CPS investigation would give police more reason to dig deeper into his life. The stakes were higher than she'd realized. She saved Detective Chen's number and tried to sleep, but rest wouldn't come. She kept thinking about tomorrow, about the moment CPS would walk through that door and decide this baby's fate. At 6 a.m., she gave up trying to sleep. She fed the baby, changed him, played with him gently. He smiled at her, a real smile, and her heart broke a little. What if this was their last day together? At 8 a.m., Dexter emerged from his office looking like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were bloodshot, his expensive suit wrinkled. "We need to talk," he said to Zola. "No, we don't." "I'm offering you money," he said bluntly. $200,000, cash, today. All you have to do is tell CPS everything is fine, that you overreacted, that the baby's injuries were minor, and we've already fixed the problem. Zola stared at him. "You want me to lie? I want you to be reasonable." "No." 300,000. "No." 500,000, Dexter said desperately. "Final offer. Think about what you could do with that money. Your mother's medical bills, a house, a future." For a split second, Zola wavered. $500,000. Enough to change her entire life. Enough to save her mother. But then she looked at the baby in her arms. "No," she said firmly. "There's not enough money in the world." Dexter's face twisted with rage. "You're making a huge mistake. I have a file on you now. Did you know your cousin was arrested for drug possession in 2019? Did you know your mother defaulted on 3 credit cards? I can make you look like you came from a family of criminals and deadbeats." "Do it," Zola said calmly. "Go ahead. Tell CPS whatever you want. But it won't change the facts. It won't erase the photos. It won't heal the marks on your son's back. It won't undo the months of neglect." "You self-righteous." "The truth isn't self-righteous," Zola interrupted. "It's just the truth." Before Dexter could respond, the doorbell rang. They both froze. It was 9 a.m. CPS had arrived early. Zola walked to the door, baby in her arms, and opened it. A woman in a gray suit stood there with a clipboard. Behind her, 2 other officials waited. "I'm Linda Martinez from Child Protective Services," the woman said. "We're here to conduct an investigation regarding the welfare of the minor child residing at this address." Zola stepped aside. "Come in. We've been waiting for you." As the CPS team entered the penthouse, Zola caught Dexter's eye. This was it. The moment of truth. And there was no going back. Linda Martinez didn't waste time with pleasantries. She walked straight into the living room, her team fanning out behind her, and set her briefcase on the coffee table. "Mr. and Mrs. Carrington, I need you both to sit down. We have questions." Dexter's jaw clenched. "Our lawyer is on his way." "That's your right," Linda said calmly. "But understand that refusing to cooperate will be noted in our report. Now sit." The command in her voice left no room for argument. Dexter and Lillian sat. Linda turned to Zola. "You're the one who contacted Dr. Morrison?" "Yes, ma'am." "I'll need to speak with you separately. But first, I need to examine the child." She held out her arms. "May I?" Zola hesitated for just a second, then carefully transferred the baby into Linda's experienced hands. The social worker's face softened as she looked at him, checking his face, his hands, his general demeanor. "He looks well cared for now," Linda noted. "Let's see his back." Zola lifted the baby's shirt. The marks were still there, faded but visible. Linda's expression hardened. She took photos with her tablet, measuring the marks with a small ruler. These match the medical report exactly. Pressure injuries, repetitive trauma. She looked at the Carringtons. "How long did you know about these?" Silence. I asked a question, Linda said sharply. The nannies mentioned something, Lillian finally said, her voice barely a whisper. But our doctor said it was normal. Which doctor? Dr. Reynolds, our family physician. Linda made a note. We'll be contacting him. Where's the crib that caused these injuries? Gone, Dexter said quickly. We had it removed yesterday. Convenient, Linda said, not looking up from her notes. Who removed it? I'll need their contact information, and I'll need to see receipts proving when it was purchased and when it was disposed of. Dexter's face went pale. I'll have to check. You do that. Linda handed the baby back to Zola. Show me the nursery. Zola led her upstairs. The other two CPS officials followed, along with Lillian. Dexter stayed downstairs, presumably calling his lawyer. The nursery looked empty without the crib, just a bare spot on the expensive rug where it had been. Linda walked around the room slowly, running her hand along the walls. Humidity problem, she noted. Feel this, the walls are damp. I noticed that too, Zola said. I think that's what rotted the crib frame. But no one thought to fix it? Linda asked Lillian. I didn't know, Lillian stammered. I barely spent time in here. The nannies you fired for raising concerns. Linda interrupted. She knelt and examined the damp spot on the rug. This is a health hazard. Mold, mildew. For an infant with developing lungs. She stood and faced Lillian. You live in a multi-million-dollar penthouse, and you couldn't be bothered to fix basic maintenance issues that were literally hurting your child? Lillian's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. Linda turned to one of her colleagues. Document everything. The moisture damage, the ventilation problems, all of it. She looked back at Lillian. Where does the baby sleep now? With Zola? Lillian admitted. In the guest room. Show me. They walked to the guest room. Linda inspected the makeshift sleeping area Zola had created. A new bassinet, properly assembled. Clean sheets, a baby monitor. Temperature gauge, everything by the book. This is appropriate, Linda said. Safe, clean, monitored. She looked at Zola. You set this up? Yes, ma'am. Yesterday after Dr. Morrison's visit. And before that? Where was the baby sleeping after the crib was deemed unsafe? On the couch downstairs with me, Zola said. I didn't leave him alone for a second. Linda made more notes. Then she turned to Lillian. Why didn't you set this up? Why did it take the maid to ensure your son's basic safety? Lillian's voice broke. I didn't know how. You didn't know how to Google safe infant sleep? You didn't know how to ask for help from someone other than your paid staff? Linda's voice cut like ice. Mrs. Carrington, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen poverty. I've seen addiction. I've seen parents with nothing who still manage to keep their babies safe. You have everything and you did nothing. That's not fair. Lillian tried. What's not fair is that your son suffered for months while you worried about your reputation. Linda shot back. She took a breath, regaining her professional composure. Let's go back downstairs. I have more questions. In the living room, a man in an expensive suit had arrived. Dexter's lawyer. My clients won't be answering any more questions without counsel present, the lawyer announced. Fine, Linda said. Then I'll direct my questions to Ms. Washington. She sat across from Zola. Tell me everything, from the beginning. Zola took a breath and started talking. She told them about her first week, the constant crying, the dismissive attitude from the Carringtons, the moment she discovered the rotting crib, the phone calls with the previous nannies, the NDAs, the payoffs, Dr. Morrison's examination, everything. The lawyer tried to interrupt several times. Linda shut him down each time. "Do you have proof of these allegations?" the lawyer demanded. Zola pulled out her phone. "I have photos of the marks on the baby's back, photos of the damaged crib, voice recordings from Sarah Chen, email documentation from all 3 previous nannies, medical reports from Dr. Morrison, text messages showing the Carringtons' refusal to seek proper medical care. Do you want me to continue?" The lawyer's face went slack. Linda held out her hand. "Send everything to this email address." She handed Zola a card. "I'll also need contact information for the previous nannies." "Already done," Zola said. "I forwarded everything to your office this morning." Linda almost smiled. "Efficient. I like that." She turned to the Carringtons. "Here's what happens next. We're opening a formal investigation. We'll be interviewing the previous employees, contacting Dr. Reynolds, examining all medical records, inspecting this property for additional safety violations." "This is outrageous," the lawyer started. "This is procedure," Linda corrected. "And given the severity of the documented neglect, we have grounds to remove the child from this home immediately." Lillian gasped. "No, please, don't take my baby." "However," Linda continued, "Dr. Morrison recommended that Ms. Washington remain as primary caregiver. The child appears to be thriving under her care, so I'm prepared to offer an alternative." Everyone leaned forward. "Ms. Washington will remain in this home as the court-appointed supervisor. She will have full authority over the child's care. The parents will have supervised access only. Any decisions regarding the child's welfare must go through Ms. Washington first." Linda looked at Dexter and Lillian. "You'll essentially be guests in your own home when it comes to your son. If you violate any part of this arrangement, he gets removed immediately. No warnings, no second chances." "That's insane," Dexter exploded. "You're giving our maid legal authority over our child?" "I'm giving the person who's actually been protecting your child the power to continue doing so," Linda said. "Unless you'd prefer we remove him to foster care while the investigation proceeds?" Dexter went silent. "I'll take that as acceptance," Linda said. She pulled out paperwork. "This is a temporary custody order. Sign here and here. Miss Washington, you sign here." Zola's hands shook as she took the pen. This was real. She was being given legal authority over the Carrington baby, a billionaire's son. She signed. Dexter looked at the paper like it was poison. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Finally, he signed. Then Lillian. "Congratulations," Linda said to Zola. "You're now the legal guardian pending the outcome of our investigation. We'll be back next week for a follow-up inspection. Until then, you're in charge." She packed her briefcase and stood. Her team followed her to the door. As they left, Linda paused and looked back at Zola. "You did the right thing. Not many people would have the courage to stand up to people like this." "Someone had to," Zola said quietly. When the door closed, the penthouse fell into heavy silence. Zola held the baby close, feeling the weight of what just happened. She was now responsible for this child's life. Legally, officially. Dexter stared at her with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes," Zola said firmly. "It is. Your lawyer can't save you. Your money can't buy your way out. And your threats don't scare me anymore." She walked past them, heading upstairs to the guest room. Behind her, she heard Lillian crying and Dexter shouting at his lawyer. But none of it mattered now. She had won. The baby was safe. And for the first time in months, Zola felt like she could breathe. 48 hours after Zola became the baby's legal guardian, Dexter Carrington launched his counterattack. She found out when her phone rang at 6 a.m. It was her mother calling from Atlanta, crying. "Baby, what did you do? The police were just at my door asking questions about you." Zola sat up in bed, heart racing. "What kind of questions?" "About your character, your history, if you'd ever been violent, if you'd ever stolen anything. They had a whole file on our family." Her mother's voice shook. "Your cousin's arrest, my medical debt, your father leaving, everything. Mama, listen to me. This is Dexter Carrington trying to discredit me. Don't tell them anything without a lawyer present." "A lawyer? Baby, I can't afford. I'll handle it. Just don't talk to anyone. I love you." Zola hung up and immediately called Detective James Chen, Sarah's brother. He answered on the first ring. "I was waiting for your call. Carrington hired a private investigation firm out of Manhattan. They're digging into everyone connected to you." "Can he do that?" "Legally, yes. Ethically, no. But here's the thing. They're being sloppy, asking questions that cross legal lines. I've already filed complaints about their tactics." "What do I do?" "Document everything, every contact they make, every question they ask. It's harassment, and it'll hurt his case with CPS." Detective Chen paused. "But Zola, you should know. He's also going after the other nannies, threatening new lawsuits, trying to get them to recant their statements." Zola's stomach dropped. "Will they?" "Sarah won't. Maria's scared but holding firm. The third one, Jessica, she's wavering. She's got kids of her own. Carrington's people told her he'd go after her custody if she doesn't cooperate." "That's evil." "That's power," Detective Chen said. "And he's got plenty of it. You need to be ready for worse." Worse came 3 hours later. Zola was feeding the baby in the kitchen when Lillian walked in, her face tight and controlled. Gone was the crying, broken woman from 2 nights ago. This was society Lillian. Cold, calculated. "We need to talk," Lillian said. "I'm busy. Dexter made a mistake threatening you directly. I'm not going to make the same mistake." Lillian sat across from her. "I'm going to appeal to your better nature. I don't have one where child safety is concerned." "You care about your mother," Lillian continued, as if Zola hadn't spoken. "Stage 4 lung cancer. Experimental treatments not covered by insurance. Currently $70,000 in medical debt." Zola's hands froze on the baby bottle. "I could make that debt disappear," Lillian said softly. "All of it. Plus enough money to cover her treatment for the next 5 years, the best specialists, the best care. She could actually survive this." The words hit like a punch to the gut. "All you have to do is tell CPS you made a mistake, that you overreacted, that we're actually good parents who had an unfortunate accident with a defective crib. The investigation goes away. We get our son back. Your mother gets to live." Zola looked down at the baby in her arms. He was drinking peacefully, trusting her completely. Then she thought about her mother, the woman who'd raised her alone, worked 3 jobs, sacrificed everything. "No," Zola said. Lillian blinked. "You didn't even think about it." "I don't need to." Zola met her eyes. "My mother raised me to do what's right, even when it costs everything, especially when it costs everything. She'd rather die than know I sold out an innocent child to save her." "You're condemning her to death." "You're condemning yourself to hell," Zola shot back. "Using a dying woman to manipulate me? That's lower than I thought even you could go." Lillian's mask cracked slightly. "I'm trying to save my family. By destroying mine, by doing whatever it takes. Lillian's voice rose. You don't understand what's at stake here. Dexter's company, our reputation, our entire life. If this investigation continues, we lose everything. Good, Zola said. Maybe you should lose everything. Maybe that's what it takes for you to understand what actually matters. Lillian stood abruptly. You're going to regret this. Probably, Zola agreed. But I'll regret it less than selling out. After Lillian left, Zola sat in silence, the baby still in her arms. Her hands were shaking. Her mother was dying. She had the power to save her. All she had to do was lie. She pulled out her phone and called her mother back. Mama, I need to tell you something. What is it, baby? The people I work for offered to pay for your treatment, all of it. But I'd have to lie about something important, something that could hurt a child. There was a long pause. Then her mother's voice came through, weak but firm. You know what my answer is. I know. But I needed to hear you say it. I didn't raise a liar, and I didn't raise a coward. You do what's right, Zola Marie Washington. You hear me? Tears streamed down Zola's face. I hear you, Mama. I'm proud of you. Whatever happens, I'm proud. When they hung up, Zola let herself cry for exactly 2 minutes. Then she wiped her face, pulled herself together, and got back to work. That afternoon, Dexter's lawyer showed up with new paperwork. A motion to dismiss the CPS investigation based on fraudulent claims by a disgruntled employee. They're going to court, the lawyer said, handing her the documents. Emergency hearing tomorrow, Judge Maxwell presiding. Zola's heart sank. Judge Maxwell was known in Boston legal circles as being sympathetic to wealthy defendants. Dexter had probably already greased the wheels. She called Detective Chen again. They're taking it to court, tomorrow. I know, I've been monitoring the filing. But Zola, there's something you should know. Judge Maxwell, he's being investigated by the FBI for accepting bribes. It hasn't gone public yet, but it's coming. If Carrington's lawyer is counting on Maxwell being in his pocket, they might be in for a surprise. Might be. Maxwell knows he's under scrutiny. He's been ruling by the book lately to avoid more suspicion. This could actually work in your favor. Or it could all fall apart. That's the risk, Detective Chen admitted. But you've got truth on your side. That counts for something. Zola spent the rest of the day preparing. She organized all her evidence, printed emails, compiled photos, made copies of everything for the court. That night, she barely slept. She kept thinking about her mother, about the baby, about everything that could go wrong tomorrow. At 2 a.m., she got a text from Sarah Chen. Jessica just caved. She's recanting her statement. Says she was mistaken about the marks. Carrington got to her. Zola's stomach twisted. That was one of their 3 witnesses gone. Another text. But Maria and I are solid, and we found something. Jessica's original photos had metadata showing exact dates and times. Even if she recants, the photos prove the timeline. We're sending everything to your lawyer. Hope flickered. At 5 a.m., Zola gave up on sleep. She fed the baby, changed him, held him close. This is it, she whispered. Today we find out if doing the right thing actually matters. The baby gurgled and grabbed her finger. At 7 a.m., she got dressed in her best outfit. Not expensive, but clean and professional. She looked at herself in the mirror. A 24-year-old black woman about to go to war with one of Boston's wealthiest families in a courtroom that probably wasn't designed for people like her to win. But she was going anyway. At 8 a.m., a black car pulled up outside. Not the Carringtons' car. A court-appointed vehicle to ensure she made it to the hearing. Dexter and Lillian were already in the foyer, dressed like they were attending a gala. Designer suits, perfect hair, the image of success. "Last chance," Dexter said quietly as Zola passed. "Drop this now, and we'll forget everything." "See you in court," Zola replied. The ride downtown was silent. Zola held the baby carrier, making sure he was comfortable. He slept through it all, innocent and unaware that his entire future was about to be decided. The courthouse loomed ahead, massive and intimidating. News vans were already parked outside. Somehow the story had leaked. Reporters swarmed as Zola got out of the car. Questions flew from every direction. "Is it true the Carringtons abused their baby? Did they pay you to keep quiet? Are you doing this for money?" Zola kept her head down and pushed through, protecting the baby from the cameras. Inside the courthouse, everything went quiet. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. She walked into the courtroom, sat in her designated seat, and waited for justice. Judge Maxwell walked into the courtroom at exactly 9 a.m. Every eye turned to him. This was the man who would decide if Zola's fight meant anything, if truth mattered more than money, if a billionaire's baby would finally be safe. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Everyone stood. The judge sat. The battle began. "This is an emergency hearing regarding case number 2025 CV 8847, Carrington versus Child Protective Services," Judge Maxwell said, looking over his reading glasses. "Mr. Pemberton, you're representing the Carringtons. Make your case." Dexter's lawyer stood, smoothing his $5,000 suit. "Your Honor, this is a case of gross overreach by CPS, instigated by a disgruntled employee with an axe to grind. My clients are loving parents who experienced an unfortunate incident with a defective product. The appropriate response would have been a simple replacement of the crib, not a full-scale investigation that has destroyed their reputation and traumatized their family." Zola's hands clenched in her lap. Ms. Washington acted beyond her authority. Pemberton continued. "She's not a medical professional. She's not a social worker. She's a domestic employee who decided to play hero and manufactured a crisis that doesn't exist." "Manufactured?" The voice came from the back of the courtroom. Linda Martinez from CPS stood. "Your Honor, may I address these allegations?" "Please do, Ms. Martinez." Linda walked to the front, her sensible shoes clicking on the marble floor. "I've been a CPS investigator for 15 years. I've seen manufactured crises. This isn't one. This is documented, repeated neglect that put an infant's life at risk." She pulled out a tablet. "I have photographs of pressure injuries on a 3-month-old baby. Medical documentation from Dr. Patricia Morrison confirming those injuries were caused by prolonged exposure to a defective crib. Voice recordings from not one, not two, but 3 previous nannies who all reported the same concerns and were silenced with NDAs and cash payouts." Pemberton interrupted. "Those nannies were fired for incompetence." "Then why pay them to sign NDAs?" Linda shot back. "If they were simply incompetent, you fire them and move on. You don't pay them substantial sums to never speak about what they witnessed. That's consciousness of guilt." Judge Maxwell leaned forward. "Mr. Pemberton, do you have an explanation for the NDAs?" "Standard practice in high-profile households, Your Honor. Privacy concerns." "Privacy or cover-up?" Linda challenged. "Because one of those nannies, Sarah Chen, documented everything. Dates, times, photos with metadata that can't be faked. She tried to report this to the family pediatrician, Dr. Reynolds. who dismissed her concerns without proper examination. "We've issued a subpoena for Dr. Reynolds," Judge Maxwell noted. "He'll be testifying later today." Dexter's face went pale. Linda continued, "What sealed my decision to intervene wasn't just the physical evidence. It was the pattern of behavior. When confronted with their child's suffering, the Carringtons didn't seek help. They didn't fix the problem. They attacked the messengers. That tells me everything about their priorities." "My clients have resources," Pemberton argued. "They can provide the best care. Resources without responsibility are meaningless," Linda interrupted. "They had the best pediatricians money could buy and chose to ignore their advice when it was inconvenient. They had 3 qualified nannies and fired them for telling the truth. They had every advantage and used it to protect their image instead of their child." The courtroom was silent. Judge Maxwell looked at Zola. "Ms. Washington, I'd like to hear from you directly. Why did you get involved?" Zola stood slowly, her legs shaking. Public speaking terrified her. But this wasn't about her fear. This was about the baby. "Your Honor, I'm not a hero. I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I'm just someone who couldn't watch a baby suffer and do nothing." Her voice was quiet but steady. "The first night I heard him crying, something in my gut told me it was wrong. Not normal, fussy crying, pain crying. And when I looked closer, I found out why." She pulled out her phone. "I have photos. The rotting crib frame. The loose metal bracket that pressed into his back night after night. The moisture damage that the Carringtons ignored, even though they live in a multi-million-dollar penthouse and could have fixed it with a single phone call. The crib was defective." Pemberton started. "The crib was neglected," Zola corrected, her voice stronger now. "Defective means it came broken. Neglected means it broke because no one cared enough to maintain it. There's a difference." Judge Maxwell nodded slowly. "Continue." "When I showed Mrs. Smell Carrington the damage, she didn't call a doctor. She didn't call a contractor. She got defensive. And when I insisted on getting real medical help, Mr. Carrington tried to fire me. Then he tried to bribe me. $200,000, then $300,000, then $500,000 to lie and say everything was fine." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. "That's a lie," Dexter shouted, standing up. "Sit down, Mr. Carrington," Judge Maxwell ordered. "She's making this up for attention." "I said sit down." The judge's voice cracked like a whip. Dexter sat. Judge Maxwell looked at Zola. "Do you have proof of these bribery attempts?" "No, Your Honor. They were verbal offers. But I do have text messages from Detective James Chen of the Boston Police Department documenting harassment of my family by private investigators hired by Mr. Carrington. And I have threatening phone calls to the previous nannies that can be traced back to numbers connected to Carrington Industries." Pemberton was sweating now. "Your Honor, this is all circumstantial." "Then let's talk about what's not circumstantial," Linda Martinez said. She pulled out a thick folder. "These are medical records from Children's Hospital where I took the baby for an independent examination after Ms. Washington's concerns. 3 separate pediatric specialists confirmed the pressure injuries. 2 confirmed signs of positional asphyxia risk from the unstable mattress. 1 noted developmental delays consistent with chronic sleep disruption." She slapped the folder on the table. This baby was in danger. Real danger. Not manufactured, not exaggerated. Real. The courtroom door opened. Dr. Patricia Morrison walked in. "Sorry I'm late, Your Honor," she said. "I was finishing my formal report." She handed copies to the judge. to Linda, and to Pemberton. This baby showed signs of chronic distress. The injuries are consistent with weeks, possibly months, of exposure to an unsafe sleep environment. And when I interviewed the parents, neither could tell me basic information about their child's care routine, feeding schedule, or sleep patterns. "We have nannies for that," Lillian said from her seat, her voice defensive. "Exactly," Dr. Morrison said, turning to face her. "You outsourced every aspect of parenting except the photo opportunities. You knew your son was suffering, and you chose to do nothing because actually addressing it would have meant admitting you'd failed." Lillian's face crumpled. Judge Maxwell reviewed the medical report in silence. The seconds stretched into minutes. Finally, he looked up. "I'm going to ask you a question, Mr. and Mrs. Carrington, and I want an honest answer. Can you tell me your son's current weight?" Silence. "Can you tell me when his last pediatric checkup was?" More silence. "Can you tell me what time he typically wakes up in the morning?" Dexter looked at Lillian. Lillian looked at the floor. "Ms. Washington," the judge said, "can you answer those questions?" Zola stood. "He weighs 13 pounds, 2 ounces as of this morning. His last checkup was 4 days ago with Dr. Morrison. He wakes up between 6 and 6:30 a.m., feeds at 7, and takes his first nap around 9. Judge Maxwell's expression said everything. "Your Honor," Pemberton tried desperately, "my clients have been under enormous stress." "Stress doesn't excuse neglect," the judge said, "and it certainly doesn't excuse attempting to silence the people trying to help your child." He looked at Dexter. "I'm denying your motion to dismiss the CPS investigation. Furthermore, I'm extending the temporary custody arrangement. Ms. Washington will remain as court-appointed guardian until this investigation concludes." "This is outrageous," Dexter exploded. "What's outrageous is that you're more upset about losing control than you are about your son suffering," Judge Maxwell said coldly. "This hearing is adjourned. CPS will continue their investigation. We'll reconvene in 30 days for a final determination." He banged his gavel. It was over. Zola stood frozen, unable to believe what just happened. She'd won. Actually won. Linda Martinez put a hand on her shoulder. "You did it." "We did it," Zola corrected, her voice shaking. Across the courtroom, Dexter was screaming at his lawyer. Lillian sat motionless, tears streaming down her face. Reporters surged forward as they left the courtroom, but court security held them back. Outside, Zola breathed in the cold Boston air and looked down at the baby in her arms. He was awake now, looking up at her with those trusting eyes. "You're safe," she whispered. Finally safe. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "I saw it on the news. I'm so proud of you, baby girl." Zola smiled through her tears. She'd sacrificed everything for this moment. Her job security, her privacy, her mother's treatment money, everything. But standing there in the January cold, holding a baby who could finally sleep without pain, she knew she'd do it all again. Some things were worth any price, and justice was one of them. 3 weeks after the court hearing, everything changed. Not because of the law, not because of CPS, but because Lillian Carrington finally broke. Zola found her at 2 a.m., sitting on the floor of the empty nursery, sobbing into her hands. "Lillian?" Zola stood in the doorway, uncertain. They hadn't spoken since the hearing except for terse exchanges about scheduling. "I don't know how to be a mother," Lillian whispered. "I don't know what I'm doing." Zola should have felt satisfaction, victory, but all she felt was sadness. She sat down on the floor next to Lillian, keeping some distance between them. Why did you have a baby? Zola asked quietly. Because it was the next step, Lillian said. We got married, built the business, bought the penthouse. A baby was supposed to complete the picture. The perfect family for the perfect life. But babies aren't accessories. I know that now. Lillian wiped her eyes. I thought I could hire people to handle the hard parts, feed him, change him, wake up with him. I thought being a mother just meant loving him from a distance, while other people did the work. That's not love, Zola said. That's ownership. Lillian flinched but didn't argue. My mother was terrible, angry, mean, always working. I promised myself I'd be different. I'd give my child everything I never had, money, opportunities, the best schools. Everything except you, Zola said softly. I was scared. Lillian's voice cracked. Scared I'd be like her. Scared I'd mess him up. So I kept my distance. Let the nannies handle it. Told myself that was better than me trying and failing. But he needed you anyway. I know. Fresh tears streamed down Lillian's face. And when he cried and cried, I didn't know what to do. So I blamed the nannies, blamed the doctors, blamed everyone except myself. Zola sat in silence, letting Lillian's words hang in the air. Dexter filed for divorce yesterday, Lillian said suddenly. Zola's head snapped up. What? The scandal hurt his company. The merger fell through. Investors are pulling out. His board asked him to step down. Lillian laughed bitterly. Turns out being exposed as a negligent father is bad for business. Who knew? I'm sorry. Don't be. He's blaming me for everything. Says I should have kept the nannies in line. Should have prevented this whole mess. Like our son's suffering was just a PR problem to manage. What are you going to do? I don't know. Lillian looked at her hands. The prenup is brutal. I'll get almost nothing. The penthouse is in his name. The bank accounts are frozen. My lawyer says I might end up with enough for a small apartment and basic living expenses. That's it. You came from nothing before, Zola said. You survived. That was different. I was hungry then. Determined. Now I'm just empty. Lillian looked at Zola. Can I ask you something? What? Why didn't you take the money, the $500,000? You could have saved your mother. Zola was quiet for a long moment. Because she raised me to value something more than survival. She raised me to value my soul. And selling out a baby would have cost me that. Even if it meant she'd die? She's dying anyway, Zola said, her voice tight. Stage 4 cancer doesn't care about money. But at least this way, when she goes, she'll know her daughter stood for something. That matters more than a few extra months. Lillian absorbed this. I don't think I'm that strong. You could be, Zola said, if you actually tried. The final CPS hearing is in 1 week, Lillian said. They're going to ask me if I want custody back. What are you going to say? I don't know. Lillian's voice was barely a whisper. Part of me wants to say yes. Fight for him. Prove I can change. But the other part knows the truth. What truth? That he's better off with you. Lillian looked at Zola with red, swollen eyes. You know his schedule, his preferences. What makes him laugh? What soothes him when he cries? You know him in a way I never bothered to learn. It's not too late, Zola said. You could still learn. Is it though? Lillian asked. Is it ever too late to undo months of neglect? To erase the fact that I let him suffer because I was too proud to admit I needed help? Zola didn't answer, because she didn't know. I want to hold him, Lillian said suddenly. Can I? Just once? before everything ends. Zola hesitated. Every instinct told her to say no, to protect the baby from the woman who'd failed him so completely. But something in Lillian's face stopped her. Genuine pain, genuine regret, maybe even genuine love, buried under layers of fear and pride. "Come with me," Zola said. They walked to the guest room where the baby slept peacefully in his bassinet. Zola picked him up carefully, supporting his head, and looked at Lillian. "Sit in the chair," she instructed. Lillian sat. Zola placed the baby in her arms, adjusting Lillian's hands to the proper position. "Support his head, like this. Keep him close to your chest so he can hear your heartbeat." Lillian held her son awkwardly at first, then gradually relaxed. The baby stirred, but didn't wake, settling into his mother's arms. "He's so small," Lillian whispered. "He's growing, gaining weight. Dr. Morrison says he's thriving now. Because of you." "Because someone finally paid attention," Zola corrected. They sat in silence. Lillian rocked slowly, tears falling onto her son's blanket. "I'm going to give up custody," she said finally. "At the hearing. I'm going to tell them he should stay with you." Zola's breath caught. "Lillian, it's the right thing to do. The only thing I can do that actually puts him first." Lillian looked down at the baby. "I don't know how to be what he needs. Maybe someday I will. But right now, today, you're his mother in every way that matters." "The court might not let me keep him," Zola said. "I'm not wealthy. I don't have a big house. I'm just—" "You're everything he needs," Lillian interrupted. "And I'll testify to that. I'll tell them the truth, that I failed him and you saved him, that he deserves better than me." "What about Dexter?" "Dexter's going to fight it. Of course he will. Not because he wants our son, but because losing custody is another public humiliation he can't stand." Lillian's voice hardened. "But I have information about his company, about the fraud investigation Detective Chen mentioned. Things I've kept quiet about for years." "What kind of information?" "The kind that could put him in prison," Lillian said. "I'll trade it. My testimony and his freedom in exchange for him giving up custody without a fight." Zola stared at her. "You'd do that? For my son?" "Yes." Lillian kissed the baby's forehead gently. "It's probably the only good thing I'll ever do for him. But at least it's something." The baby yawned and opened his eyes, looking up at his mother. For just a moment, Lillian smiled. A real smile, soft and genuine. "Hi, baby," she whispered. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm so sorry." The baby grabbed her finger with his tiny hand. Lillian's face crumpled. She looked at Zola. "Take him, please, before I change my mind." Zola lifted the baby carefully. Lillian stood and walked to the window, staring out at the Boston skyline. "1 week," she said. "In 1 week, this all ends. And maybe, if there's any justice in the world, he'll get the life he deserves." "What about you?" Zola asked. "What will you do?" "Start over," Lillian said. "Somewhere far from here. Somewhere I can figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be perfect." She left the room without looking back. Zola held the baby close, her mind racing. 1 week until the final hearing. 1 week until everything was decided. Dexter would fight. She knew he would. Even with Lillian's testimony and evidence against him, he had money and power and connections. But she had something stronger. She had love. And she had the truth. And in 1 week, she'd find out if that was enough. Her phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chen. Carrington's company just got raided by the FBI. Financial fraud charges incoming. Might want to use this at the hearing. Zola allowed herself a small smile. The empire was crumbling, and from the ashes, maybe something better could grow. She looked down at the baby in her arms. One more week, little one, just one more week, and then we'll know if we get to stay together. The baby cooed softly, as if he understood. Outside, the city lights glittered against the dark sky. Everything was about to change. And for the first time in months, Zola felt something close to hope. The final hearing arrived on a cold February morning. This was it. The moment that would decide if a 24-year-old maid from Atlanta could keep a billionaire's baby. The moment that would prove if courage meant anything in a world built on money. Judge Maxwell entered the courtroom. Everyone rose. The battle began one last time. This is the final determination hearing for case 2025 CV 8847, the judge announced. I've reviewed all evidence, testimonies, and reports from Child Protective Services. Before I make my ruling, I want to hear from the parents. Dexter Carrington stood. He looked different, thinner, older. The FBI raid had happened 3 days ago. His company was under investigation. His board had voted him out. The merger was dead, but he was still fighting. Your Honor, I made mistakes. I acknowledge that. But I'm still this child's father. I have rights, and I've taken steps to correct my errors. I've hired a full-time nanny, renovated the nursery with state-of-the-art safety equipment, enrolled in parenting classes. All within the last week, Judge Maxwell noted dryly. Better late than never, Dexter said defensively. I'm prepared to be the father my son needs. Ms. Washington may have good intentions, but she lacks resources, stability. She can't provide what I can. Money isn't everything, Mr. Carrington, the judge said, as this case has proven. Dexter sat down, jaw clenched. Mrs. Carrington? Judge Maxwell looked at Lillian. She stood slowly. She wore a simple dress, no jewelry, no designer labels. She looked vulnerable, real. Your Honor, I'm not going to fight for custody, she said quietly. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Lillian, what are you doing? Dexter hissed. She ignored him. I'm going to tell the truth instead. I failed my son, completely. I was so obsessed with appearances that I ignored his suffering. I silenced people who tried to help him. I chose my reputation over his safety. Her voice shook, but didn't break. Zola Washington did what I should have done from the beginning. She put my son first. She risked everything to protect him. And because of her, he's healthy now, happy, thriving. This is insane, Dexter interrupted. You're giving up our child. I'm giving him a chance, Lillian corrected, turning to face her soon-to-be ex-husband. Something we never did, and I'm done covering for you, Dexter. I'm done pretending we're good people who made mistakes. We're not. We're selfish people who hurt our own child. She pulled an envelope from her purse. Your Honor, this contains evidence of financial fraud at Carrington Industries. Documents showing Dexter knowingly falsified investor reports. Emails proving he was aware of the FBI investigation months ago. I'm submitting this to support my testimony that he's unfit for custody. Dexter's face went white. You can't. I already did, Lillian said. I spoke to the FBI 2 days ago. Gave them everything. Your freedom for our son's safety. That's the trade. You destroyed me, Dexter shouted. No, Lillian said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you. Judge Maxwell banged his gavel. Mr. Carrington, sit down or I'll have you removed. Dexter collapsed into his seat, his empire crumbling around him. The judge turned to Zola. "Ms. Washington, approach the bench." Zola stood, her legs shaking. She walked forward, acutely aware of every eye on her. "I've read your background," Judge Maxwell said. "You work 2 jobs. You send money to your mother in Atlanta. You have no criminal record, no history of instability. But you also don't have wealth or conventional resources." "No, Your Honor," Zola said quietly. "Tell me why you should have custody of this child." Zola took a breath. "Because I love him, not the idea of him, not what he represents. Him. I know when he's hungry before he cries. I know he likes to be held on the left side because my heartbeat calms him. I know he's starting to recognize faces and sounds. I know these things because I pay attention. Because to me, he's not an accessory or a burden. He's a person who deserves someone who actually sees him." Her voice grew stronger. "I don't have money. I don't have a mansion. But I have time. I have patience. I have love that isn't conditional on him being perfect or quiet or convenient. And I promise you, Your Honor, if you let me keep him, I will spend every day proving he was worth fighting for." The courtroom was silent. Judge Maxwell looked at his notes, then at the baby, who was sleeping peacefully in Zola's arms. Then back at Zola. "In my 15 years on the bench, I've seen a lot of custody cases. Rich parents, poor parents, good parents, bad parents. But I've rarely seen someone fight as hard as you've fought for a child that isn't legally yours." He paused. "However, the law is complicated. You're not a blood relative. You're not a licensed foster parent. Technically, this child should go into the foster system while permanent placement is determined." Zola's heart sank. "But," the judge continued, "I have discretion in unusual circumstances. And this case is as unusual as they come." He looked at Dexter. "Mr. Carrington, you've shown a pattern of negligence, attempted bribery, and now face serious criminal charges. I'm terminating your parental rights effective immediately." Dexter started to protest. His lawyer pulled him back down. Judge Maxwell turned to Lillian. "Mrs. Carrington, your honesty today shows growth. But too little, too late. However, your voluntary surrender of custody and cooperation with authorities will be noted favorably should you seek therapy and eventual supervised visitation." Lillian nodded, tears streaming down her face. Finally, the judge looked at Zola. "Ms. Washington, I'm granting you emergency foster custody with a path to adoption. You'll work with CPS to complete licensing requirements. You'll receive state support and resources. And in 6 months, we'll reconvene to finalize permanent adoption." Zola's knees nearly gave out. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you." "Don't thank me," Judge Maxwell said. "Thank yourself. You earned this." He banged his gavel. "This court is adjourned." The courtroom exploded. Reporters surged forward. Dexter was shouting. Lillian was crying. But Zola just held the baby close, tears of joy streaming down her face. Linda Martinez appeared beside her. "Congratulations, Mama." "I'm really his mother?" Zola whispered, still not believing it. "In every way that counts," Linda said. "Now let's get you out of here before the media circus swallows you whole." They escaped through a side exit. Outside, the February air felt crisp and clean. New. Zola's phone rang. Her mother. "Baby girl, I saw it on the news. You did it. You really did it." "We did it, Mama," Zola said, her voice thick with emotion. "How are you feeling?" "Better than I have in months," her mother said. Turns out pride is pretty good medicine. I'm so proud of you I could burst. I love you, Mama. I love you too. Now bring my grandson home to meet his grandma. Zola laughed through her tears. Soon, I promise. She hung up and looked down at the baby, her baby now, sleeping peacefully in her arms. 6 months ago, she was just a maid trying to make ends meet. Now she was a mother, a guardian, a fighter who'd taken on one of Boston's wealthiest families and won. Not through money or connections or power. Through courage, through truth, through love. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sarah Chen. You're all over the news. Maid takes down billionaire empire to save baby. You're a hero. Another text from Maria. Thank you for finishing what we started. That baby has a real chance now because of you. Zola smiled. She wasn't a hero. She was just someone who'd done what needed to be done. The baby stirred in her arms, opening his eyes. He looked up at her and smiled. A real, genuine smile that lit up his whole face. Hey, little one, she whispered. Welcome to our new life. It won't be fancy. We won't have a penthouse or designer clothes, but we'll have something better. We'll have each other. And we'll have love. Real love. The kind that shows up at 2 a.m. when you're crying. The kind that fights for you even when the whole world says to give up. The kind that matters. The baby grabbed her finger with his tiny hand. Zola looked out at the Boston skyline. Somewhere in that city, Dexter was facing the consequences of his choices. Lillian was starting over. The empire was crumbling. But here, in this moment, holding her son, Zola felt nothing but peace. She'd risked everything. Her job, her safety, her mother's treatment, everything. And she'd gained everything that mattered. As the February sun broke through the clouds, Zola Washington carried her son toward their future, toward a small apartment instead of a penthouse, toward simple meals instead of catered dinners, toward a life built on love instead of luxury. And it was perfect. Because sometimes the greatest victories aren't about what you win. They're about what you refuse to lose. And Zola had refused to lose her soul, her integrity, and this baby's chance at a real life. That was worth more than all the money in the world. The end. But really, it was just the beginning. Zola risked everything for what was right. She stood up to billionaires when others stayed silent. She chose a baby's life over $500,000. And she won. If this story moved you, I need 2 seconds from you right now. Subscribe. Ring the bell. Here's the truth. Only 1% of people watching are subscribed. Your subscription is what keeps stories like this coming. Stories about real courage, real injustice, and real victories that prove doing the right thing still matters. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling me, would you have taken the money or fought like Zola? Your support means I can keep bringing you powerful stories that inspire and expose truth. Thank you for watching. Now go subscribe, because we're just getting started.